All right, so let's say that you are in charge of making the base of your trebuchet. So you would log into the Teams document that you've shared with your team members, and you would go to the tab labeled Base. If this tab doesn't exist, I'd click the plus icon, create a new part studio, and rename it as your base. So let's think about what we know about the base. It's going to be made from a 2x4. So a 2x4 is actually 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So I'm going to start by doing that. I'm going to create a new sketch. I'm going to put it in my front plane. And I always like to view directly flat down. The first thing I put down, I always like to connect it somehow to the origin. That way my drawings are anchored. I'm going to click the center point rectangle. If you don't have this option, click this down arrow by your rectangle tool, and you'll see that there's other rectangle options. I'm going to go to the center point rectangle. I'm going to start in the origin. I'm going to come out like this. I'm going to select my dimension tool, and I'm going to make it 1.5 inches tall, 1.5. And I'm going to select my dimension tool. I'm going to click the bottom side and place it out here. I'm going to make it 3.5 inches wide. I know a 2x4 should be 2 inches by 4 inches, but it's not. It's 1.5 by 3.5. I'm going to click the green check, and I can see my little area that I have created, which are the appropriate dimensions for the wood that we'll be using. I'm going to click the area of that rectangle and select the extrude tool. Now, this is where you get to make a design choice based on your group's plans. So the maximum length that's allowed to be is 10 inches. So I could extrude this for up to 10 inches here. Just like that. And you'll see it's right there. You don't have to go the full length. You could make this only 8 inches if you want. Whatever length your group has decided. I'm going to say, let's go with the full length of 10 and click the green check mark. So there's my 2x4 piece. All right. That's the first thing I'll need to make. The next thing I'll kind of want to make is sort of this A-frame support that goes on the side. And this is where I'm going to build one part on top of another. I'm going to sketch this in a way that it fits right on the side of this piece here. So I'm going to click Sketch, and I'm going to select now for my sketch plane the side of that 2x4. I'm going to view this from the right. Give me a nice flat down view. Let me zoom out. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw this A-frame. This is really up to you. There's a lot that you can do here in terms of how you want it to look. But one important thing is you do need a hole for your bearing. And I'm going to put my bearing hole somewhere way up here, kind of centered. Actually, I think I want it exactly centered. So what I could do if I want to make sure it's exactly centered is I could unselect my circle tool. Let me grab the center of this circle. You can see if I hover over the center part of this side, I wake up the midpoint. It looks like a square. And I can move straight up right there. Now it's perfectly vertical to the center point right there. That's optional. You don't have to do that, but I like the look of that. Now, how big should this hole be? Well, this hole is going to fit a bearing. So I kind of need to know what size the bearing is. The bearings we're getting came from Amazon. You can see this is the bearing page. And they are kind enough to tell me the dimensions of these bearings. They have 1/4 inch holes, but the total distance across it is 1/2 inch from side to side. The diameter of the bearing is 1/2 inch. It has a flange here that's going to sit on the outside, but this 1/2 inch. So when I go back to my trebuchet plan, I'm going to dimension this hole to have a diameter of 0.5 inches. Just like that. Now, I might have gotten a little bit ahead of myself here. I don't want to be designing outside of the constraints. So remember that the constraints said that this cannot be taller than 15 inches. So it might be a good time to maybe put what I would call a construction rectangle here, or a construction made of construction lines. If I click the rectangle tool, let's use the corner rectangle. I'm going to select this option here, construction, which will make things dashed. I'm going to hover over the bottom left corner here. I'm going to wake up this side here so I can snap to it and slide up just like that. And I've created this border. I'm going to grab my dimension tool and I'm going to dimension this border to be 15 inches tall. So that kind of gives me a baseline for the space I have to work here to create this trebuchet. Remember, you don't have to use all this space. It's totally an option. But that is what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to use, let's say I make this circle, this pivot point. I'm going to make it 12 inches from the bottom of the base. There we go. All right, now I need to sort of make an A-frame around here. Let me go ahead and select my line tool. I'm going to create a border here. I'm starting this lower left corner. I'm going to come here. I'm going to go up to this corner. I want to go directly above that and then down to the right, snapping to these corners where convenient. I'm going to keep going around the entire shape. I want to make sure there's lines all around here because I'm trying to enclose an area. If I hide part 1, which is my 2x4 piece, I should see this whole shape here. You'll notice that it's blue, which means it's not fully constrained. If I unselect all my tools, I can grab this and I can move it around. You can see it's not defined. So this might be a good opportunity to add some dimension and say, you know what, the point of this has to be 1.5 inches higher than that hole. All right, so I could do that. Let's go ahead and click the green check mark. I've got my sketch here. I can select the area. I'm going to have to select both areas. There's a top and a bottom area. It does this because I did this sketch on the surface of part 1, so it kind of uses that as a natural separator line. I'm going to select those 2 areas. I'm going to click extrude. Let's bring back part 1 so I can see it. And you can see here it's extruding it off of part 1. It's actually, yeah, it's extruding it off of part 1. But this is going to be made of 1/8 inch plywood, so the depth is 1/8 inch. That looks pretty good right there. Click the green check mark. You can see it actually looks like one huge piece. It's all this light blue color. So when I did that extrusion, it added it to my previous part. I don't want that. Let's double click extrude 2 and reopen up the options. And instead of a solid addition, I'm going to do a solid new piece. Let's click the green check mark. And now I can see, okay, it's a separate piece. Good. Let me go ahead and take a look at it. How's that look? I think it looks pretty good. I kind of like how it's turning out. I don't like this really sharp point at the top here. I could do a couple things to fix that if I want. I could go back into Sketch 2 and add a curve in that way. That's one option. I could go up here to this fillet tool and I could click this edge and give it, let's say, a 1-inch fillet. Oop, that's too much. Let's try a 1/2 inch fillet. So I could round it out like that so it's not so pointy. That's good. I don't like that though. I'm going to go back to my original sketch. Let's go back to Sketch 2. And I'm going to add a circle in here. My circle tool with the same center, but goes out and is tangent, good geometry word there, tangent to this side here, just like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and grab my trim tool, and I'm going to trim that away. All right, let's click the green check mark, and my extrusion now is selecting only that area. If you need to modify, you can go into extrude 2, and you can make sure to not have that pointy area selected. Hey, looks pretty good. Okay, so my base is probably pretty good. I would leave it like that. You might say, well, what about the other side over here? It's going to be identical. Okay, so this piece over here is identical to the piece that's going to be over here. I'm just going to use that part twice. I don't need to model it again. So don't worry about that showing up in your model here. You've got that already taken care of. What you might want to do is add some sort of a support piece on the outside here. In my example, I did this. It's up to you, and you can do this all sorts of ways. But the easiest way would be from a bottom down view, create a new sketch right here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab another center point rectangle. And I want to center it in the middle here. And snap it to that edge. We're going to make this out of the same material the arm is made out of, which is 3/4 inch dowel, square dowel. So 0.75 by 0.75. Click the green check mark, select my area, extrude it. Whoop, it's going the wrong way. So I'm going to click this little opposite direction button. And let's say I go 12 inches. Whoop, that's too far. I'm going to cover up my hole. Let's make it 10 inches. That looks like a good support piece. It is the same gray as this other piece, so it's probably actually trying to add it to that. I don't want that. I want a brand new piece. This is a separate piece of wood. I'm going to change it from a solid addition to a solid new piece. And click the green check mark. That looks pretty good right there. All right. The base is a complicated part, so hopefully while whoever's working on this base, the other team members are working on the arm or the basket, other little features of this that they might be interested in having. All right, that is the base. Feel free to do it as you wish. Just keep in mind the parts that we have available.